Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. How's Eddie Frederick?
So glad you can join us. United States Vice President pledges US $100 million to tackle gun violence in the Caribbean. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 12th June 2023. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has pledged $100 million to CARICOM to address influx of guns and ammunition crisis. Gun trafficking was high on the agenda for CARICOM heads of government meeting between heads of state and governments of the Caribbean and the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Gina Felipe of HTS News Force reports.
The U.S. has heard the pleas of regional leaders to help stop the epidemic of illegal firearms imports into the Caribbean. The Caribbean leaders, including Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, have expressed concerns about the spike in illegal shipment of firearms from the United States of America. Pierre was among the CARICOM heads of state at a meeting with Vice President of the United States Kamala Harris. The U.S. Vice President reaffirmed the America's commitment in dealing with the influx of guns and ammunition to the region.
On the issue of security, too many people in all of our countries are dying from gun violence. I will reiterate that our administration is committed to disrupt gun trafficking. We are committed to interdict shipments of arms and ammunition and hold traffickers accountable. And today I am pleased to announce that the United States Department of Justice will create a new position, a coordinator for Caribbean firearms prosecutions, which will help maximize information sharing between our countries to support the prosecution of traffickers. This effort will be aided by the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which President Biden signed last year, and includes new federal criminal offenses for firearms trafficking and straw purchases.
Harris also vowed to provide training to countries to improve gun-related convictions.
Through the U.S. law enforcement agencies, we are supporting a recently established Caribbean Crime Gun Intelligence Unit in Trinidad and Tobago to train officials in firearms investigations and help bring criminals to justice. And we will stand up a Haiti Transnational Criminal Investigative Unit in collaboration with the Haitian National Police to facilitate investigation and prosecution of firearms and human trafficking, which affects the entire region.
The U.S. Vice President pledged some $100 million, including $98 million in new funding from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, to address climate, energy, food security, and humanitarian assistance in the Caribbean.
Today, it is my pleasure to announce additional PAC 2030 investments. One, specifically, a $20 million investment in the Caribbean Climate Investment Program to help incentivize the private sector to partner with Caribbean nations to develop more clean energy technologies like microgrids and energy storage systems, and to help businesses become more energy efficient in their operations. And second, a $15 million investment to support emergency response efforts and strengthen the capacity of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. This investment is intended to help develop new early warning systems and pre-position first aid equipment and generators.
The CARICOM heads of government also urged the removal of sanctions on Venezuela to allow countries in the region to capitalize on the Petro-Caribe initiative. The heads also highlighted that the removal will also advance the exploitation of cross-border natural gas fields between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. Additionally, the CARICOM leaders made a case for the lifting of sanctions on Cuba. Gina Filippi, HTS News Force.
On Tuesday last, the Integrity Commission in Jamaica released a 10-page document labeled Public Classifications regarding the Integrity Commission's Leadership Code of Conduct. In it, Cabinet Ministers Marlene Malahou Fort and Robert Morgan were chastised for their public remarks about the document. CVM's Natalia Clark has the details.
The Commission acting in the interest of exposing corruption? Is it acting in the interest of ensuring that the Jamaican people get value for their money? These are the questions being asked by Minister of Justice Delroy Chuck as he responds to a statement from the Integrity Commission which blasted Prime Minister Andrew Holness and members of his cabinet for so far failing to sign the Leadership Code of Conduct.
It is an anti-corruption agency. But it is now making itself to be an oversight body for good governance, for accountability. That's the Auditor General's jurisdiction. What it amounts to leadership, good leadership, that's not the work, with due respect, of the Integrity Commission.
The Information Minister, who was among those singled out in the IC release, joined in responding, explaining his public remarks about the mentioned document are nothing but facts.
No code of conduct has been presented to me, nor have I been consulted on a code of conduct. That the Commission has accused me of statements that, in their words, quote, might have confused the public is potentially at least mischievous and might at worst undermine my credibility as the minister with responsibility for information.
He notes how initially it was requested the head of government and opposition sign the document on behalf of their subordinates. He goes a bit further, suggesting the change was subsequent to Mark Golding requesting shadow cabinet ministers sign individually.
Is it appropriate, rather, for this independent commission, which states that it will not, quote, subject itself to undue influence or desires by any person, official or authority, while discharging its lawful functions under law, end quote, to make such a fundamental change at the behest of the opposition leader?
He further notes as follows, claims that all members of cabinet and shadow cabinet have been trained by the IC, and he and Delroy Chuck insist them not signing the document does not suggest they are corrupt or endorsing any scorned behavior, as there are other documents that hold the politicians accountable. Natalia Clark, CVM Live.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The missing Army-issued assault rifle was found by police in Macarip, Chagaramas on Friday. The Galil rifle was reported missing from the Tetran barracks in Trinidad and Tobago last weekend. TTT News reports.
Acting Minister of National Security Marvin Gonzalez, at a media conference on Friday, said a collaboration between all arms of national security over the last couple of days resulted in the find.
At 1 p.m. today, the assault rifle, the Galil assault rifle, together with the magazine, was discovered in the Macarip area as a result of a tip that was passed to the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, working in collaboration with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
On Wednesday, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service said 4 people were detained over the disappearance of the assault weapon. Minister Gonzalez confirmed that one of the persons is a member of the regiment.
2 persons remain in custody, police custody, in relation to the criminal investigation, and the police is expecting to lay charges against 2 persons, including a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, in relation to the missing weapon.
The Ministry of National Security had offered a $75,000 reward for information on the missing rifle. However, Minister Gonzalez said the informant did not give a name, nor did the person make a claim for the reward.
In the meantime, the production of oil and gas remain a top concern for many in Trinidad and Tobago, and former Energy Minister Kevin Ramnarine is one such person. He says it's time to look beyond election cycles and focus on rebuilding the economy. TV6's Nicole M. Romani has more.
Ramnarine tells TV6 that the horse that pulls the cart of our local energy sector is oil and gas, but there is a shortage of natural gas. He notes that the problem is only getting worse. He says the prices of ammonia and oil and gas were higher last year due to the Russia-Ukraine war, but that has now changed.
We have a double problem facing us. We have a two-tiered problem. One, we have falling production, and two, we now have falling prices. And therefore, the benefit of whatever we realized in 2022 because of the Russia-Ukraine war is gone.
Mr. Ramnarine further notes the wage negotiations between the Chief Personnel Officer and trade unions. He referenced the 4% offered and now accepted by several unions to demonstrate the state of the economy.
Officers, what they got was equivalent to something like $250 increase in salary. Now, that doesn't help. So we have a population that is becoming relatively poorer. And at the same time, we have this problem with the economy that nobody seems to know how to solve. And the other problem, too, is that oil and natural gas, the demand for those things as we move into the mid-2030s, and I know Trinidad is a country where people don't think that far down the road because we tend to think in terms of election cycles.
The former minister believes he has the solution for the problem.
The demand for natural gas will peak by around the late 2030s. And I know there are people listening to the show saying, well, by then I'm gone, right? But all our young people in this country, and we have a pretty large young population, they'll still be here. So we have to begin with urgency this process of diversification, which ought to have happened when I was a child in the 1970s, but we still have that to do. So that, in a nutshell, really is the problem.
He also believes focus should be placed on the maritime sector, describing it as the future. Nicole M. Romani, TV6 News.
Cutting the food import bill in St. Kitts and Nevis by 25% by the year 2025 is what officials in agriculture on the two islands of the Federation have been meeting to strategize the way forward on. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline reports.
Following preliminary discussions on a matter between Federal Minister of Agriculture Samuel Duggins and Agriculture Minister in the Nevis Island Administration Eric Evelyn, the planning moved to involve a wider team from both islands at a recently held meeting in Charlestown, Nevis. There, the agriculture ministers expressed the view that together the country has the potential to achieve the goal.
The purpose of our engagement today is to bring some collaboration and cohesion between both St. Kitts and Nevis as far as our buy-in to the 25 by 25 agenda as set by CARICOM. While we have two different departments and ministries of agriculture based on our constitution, we thought it wise that we approach this matter as one country as we are. And so as a federal minister, I would have engaged with the minister, Mr. Evelyn, on Nevis, and we would have collaborated on the idea that St. Kitts and Nevis should move in one accord. And today we have brought our technical teams together so that we both can have a shared vision in our approach to the 25 by 25 agenda for St. Kitts and Nevis as one country. And I must say, discussions are going extremely well. And I believe that at the end of these discussions, we'll have a very well-formulated plan as to how we would both contribute to one agenda for 25 by 25.
To continue to do is to identify crops, certain crops, livestock products, marine products that we think has the potential for us to increase our production locally so that we can have a reduction by 25% or even more than 25% by the year 2025. I think that here in St. Kitts and Nevis we do have the potential to reach that target, and so what we're also trying to do is to identify what our strength, our weaknesses, our opportunities and our threats are in terms of reaching those targets. And so we have a very good cadre of agricultural experts, I would say, here today, and we've been having some very rich discussions, and I am hoping that as we continue these discussions that we will continue to coordinate. Very important for us to coordinate what is happening between both St. Kitts and Nevis.
The efforts form part of the food imports reduction targeted by CARICOM for the year 2025. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.